If that's one of your favorite offenses, how low on the list is Pittsburgh's offense?
Pittsburgh has been okay. They've been interesting, right? And it hasn't been great. But they've been doing some interesting things, and kind of like Justin Fields said, if he had been, playing better, there wouldn't be any question of who the starting quarterback would be. So, there weren't as many negatives. Pittsburgh's not on a scale of, a Cleveland offense, which just anytime I have to go in and figure out what is going on with Cleveland, or if I'm watching a defense or anything, and, getting in the quarterback rankings, having to rank Cleveland's quarterback and just kind of watching that
bottom,
game.
put a hazmat suit on, watch 5 plays, say nothing's changed, and get the hell out of there, Dan. That is the plan.
Yeah, that's pretty much where Cleveland is. So Pittsburgh is not really close to that. I am interested in a way of what it could potentially look like with Russell Wilson, because the last time we saw Russell Wilson, it wasn't, Cleveland bad, but it was very stale, where it was a quarterback who used to have this mobility and this ability to extend plays. That just wasn't there. And I think, I'm not sure if another year and coming off a calf injury now is going to make that much better. So I'm a little more hesitant into what the Pittsburgh offense is going to look like going forward than I would have maybe been a little more optimistic of how it could have grown with Justin Fields. Because I think they were doing some decent things. It just wasn't a great, outstanding performance. And some of that was also, personnel related. They don't have the greatest, receivers. So it's tough. It's definitely not the most exciting offense to watch, and I'm not sure how much better it gets, if at all, if they make a quarterback change.
Well, so that's what I was obviously getting at is the decision to go with Wilson over Fields. And I think you can separate the two things, right? Of Justin today was tremendous, answering questions, taking accountability, saying, I didn't play good enough. It was not undeniable, obviously, that they are making the wrong decision here. My question for that offense specifically, though, would be, what does it do to your run game? You have these things that are working, that are helping you win games. You're possessing the football, Fields is moving the chains, the numbers are always in your favor because you're always terrified that he's going to pull it on your basic run plays. And that changes how defenses play you. And even though he has not been good as a passer, you've been able to win because you're trying to ultimately offensively just support your defense and hope that a couple times a game they give you great field position and you can take advantage. How much do they, let's pretend they get the best version of Russell Wilson that we saw in Denver last year. How does that change their offense, and can they still accomplish that mission?
Yeah, I mean, to start, I don't know how good the best version of Russell Wilson in Denver was last year. That still was not a good quarterback. Even when, I think they had a couple games where they played fairly well, but he still wasn't playing a great quarterback. But like you said, I think there was a lot of Fields kind of getting the most out of some of his scrambles. It wasn't always, that designed run game that I think we'd seen kind of take off from some of these other quarterbacks and some of these other better offenses. So if there's a little more, I think it also is going to depend on how much they are going to have an Arthur Smith offense versus a Russell Wilson offense. Because I think even when we saw his later stages in Seattle, every offense eventually kind of becomes a Russell Wilson offense, and that ends up being, a lot of more shotgun, a lot more empty, because he likes to do that. But at this stage in his career, he's not as good at doing those things. So he does kind of need some of those guardrails and some of the kind of training wheels type of, under center play action types of things. So if they can get back to that, and it's, more of an Arthur Smith offense, I still have kind of trust in the design of the run game a little bit. So I think that can help. But if it's going to be so much based in shotgun and kind of doing the things that Russell Wilson thinks he can still do as a quarterback, that's when I think it really starts to derail the offense. And I think that's kind of how we saw it go off the rails a little bit at the end of his Seattle tenure and then even in Denver.
All right, last but not least, indulgence for our audience here, the struggles of the rest of the NFC East. If you had to, if I tell you got to buy Cowboys stock or Eagles stock, and they're currently the same price, and you get to cash out at the end of the year, which one do you think you're making more money on?
Oh man, I'm going into this knowing I'm not going to make money, but I think I would. I would take the Eagles just because there's more talent there that gives them a bigger margin for error, especially on offense. I think Dallas is tough. I think Dak is playing well, but what is on his plate right now to carry this offense, really, like with just CeeDee Lamb as the only real receiving threat, is really hard when the defense just isn't there, and there have been injuries there. So with Philadelphia, at least you have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith back, and that made a huge difference against Cleveland. That's an even uglier game last week if those two aren't playing, and really like the biggest plays there were just throwing it up to A.J. Brown. So there are so many outs in the way they have Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert when he's healthy. He left early in that game. And then Barkley. I think there's just a wider margin for error where someone can take over a game, and I just don't feel like Dallas has that right now. So I think Philly, just because of the high quality of some of this star power they have, although I don't really believe in that defense either, kind of outside, Jalen Carter taking over a bunch of plays here and there. So, but the talent on offense, I think, just gives Philly a little wider margin for error.
Yeah, no, I would probably agree with you, and that's why I hate Philly more. It's like you are so like Dallas is just funny. It's like we all saw this clown crash coming, and Philly, it's like, yeah. Are you guys really going to do this again? Are you really going to implode like this? Oh yeah, you are. Wow, and yet I will say this: of the teams left on Washington's schedule, they scare me specifically for Washington the most, because they can do like three things that Washington I don't think is very good at, but I don't actually think they're good. They could beat Washington twice, and I'd be like, yeah, okay, fine. Washington's still the better team because it's like it's a matchup thing, but I actually don't think Philly's good at all. Yeah,
that probably explains it quite well. I wouldn't trust any of Washington's corners right now to be matching up with A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith, and either in man or zone. So I think, that is going to be a struggle. But in terms of, betting on Philly to be a good team for the rest of the season, I wouldn't feel comfortable doing that either.
Yeah, or it'll just be like a 45-40 game. That could be fun. Let's get some points on the board, shall we? NFC East football, just the way God intended. Dan Pizzuta with us here on The Hoffman Show, weekly on Thursdays, and writing every single day at the 33rd Team. Dan, always appreciate it, sir, and we will talk to you next week.
All right, sounds good. Thanks.
Hey, this is DA, and you're listening to The Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and the Odyssey app.